No more carbon tax in British Columbia. And will the U.S. Senate vote against Trump's tariffs? Election 2025, lots of coverage in the election for sure. And big local news, Donald Trump buys 2 golf courses in Kelowna. Can you guess which ones they are? Any thoughts there, Ian? Ian's with us here. I'm Jim Check with Kelowna Now. Ian Burns on the phone with us.
Well, he loves a good golf course, doesn't he, Trump? So I mean, I'm sure people are not too surprised that he's picked Kelowna as his next destination.
Yeah, I think what it is he's buying the one right there in the center of town, and then he's buying half of Wilden, and he's going to kind of make that golf course like into a 60-hole course.
Seems to like Lake Country, he was saying. Very impressed by Lake Country. That's what I got from his speech.
There you go. Anybody had missed it there? Happy April Fool's Day. There you go. That's our little spoof. Hey, anybody believe that? Probably not, right? But hey, we had to give it a shot anyway, right? But not an April
It was
Fool's Day.
possible.
It was possible, yeah. No way. We can put it out there. We can put it out there. Since the city's buying lots of golf courses out here in Kelowna, why not a guy that has so many golf courses? Kelowna is one of the golf meccas of the world. The world just doesn't know that.
Yeah. He could turn it into a golf mecca, I'm sure.
There you go. I've been out golfing already. It's actually awesome. Golf courses are open in Kelowna. Not all of them yet, but I was out there this past weekend.
Do you
So
think he
anyway,
could beat Trump?
could I beat Trump? No, he won a championship somewhere, didn't he?
Yeah. Seems to win a lot of things. I don't know if people are just letting him win, but yeah.
Well, yeah, I'd be in the same category as him, the old seniors category. So there you go. Anyway, good riddance to the carbon tax. BC government approves bill to end the consumer side of the toxic levy. There you go.
Yeah. So, I mean, they've brought it, it's still on the books. They've just reduced the rate down to zero. So theoretically, they could still just turn the switch back on. It's still kind of there, but they've said that because they had to get it through so quickly. And it
Hmm.
was also like it went right up. It was quite late last night that they did it, which is like really that's just of David Eby's own making because he decided to have an enormous vacation and not bring back the Legislative Assembly. He could have done all of this like ages and ages ago, months ago. He could have done this kind of thing. But whatever, he waited till the last second. And then he even last night, or yesterday afternoon, I think it was, came out with a really odd threat, which was basically like, if we lose this vote, then we're going to have another election. And that's just it. Like we're ready to fight another election right now. So it's kind of brinkmanship this early in his term. It's pretty interesting development.
17 years of that carbon tax, and that was first introduced by the BC United Party, we have to remember. But it was Kelowna Now and myself, and along with Ian Burns, we asked when we interviewed Mr. Premier if he would end the carbon tax, and he made that promise then the first time to us that if the feds dump it, he would dump it. So there you go. Kelowna Now was on the ball and there early on, right?
And it's interesting, you mentioned that it was actually the BC Liberals that introduced that. I mean, he's made a lot of noise about that. And when he was criticized by Rustad straight away, he was like, well, you were part of a government that kept it in place, as you'd expect. That's like basically ABC sort of politicking, what you'd expect from a politician. But it's very interesting to note that when it was first introduced, it was nowhere near as high and severe as it's ended up being now. I mean, I think it isn't even so much that the tax was in place that upset people. I think it was that it kept increasing
I
every
think,
April Fool's. It kept going up and up and up and up. And it got to a point where it was kind of a little bit too much for people to handle, I think.
yeah, there was a compounding carbon tax in so many ways. It kept compounding, getting bigger. And that's the big thing about it. It just kept getting worse. At first, it was just like, like not much, but then it became really kind of like annoying to people. And, like we should see a 17 cents a liter drop at the pump. It'll remain to be seen what we actually get to see and how long that 17-cent drop lasts, right? Like that'll be the interesting part about it. But Eby blames it on the Conservatives, both federal and provincial, saying that they made it a toxic issue. not recognizing that most Canadians saw it as a toxic issue. So, again, just a little bit of gaslighting there, saying that the Conservatives made it toxic. Do you not think that the Conservatives got success with it because Canadians found it toxic?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's very disingenuous, isn't it? I mean, it's just it's a pretty desperate attempt by him to play both sides. He wants to get rid of it because he knows that people despise it by and large, but then he wants to pretend that he's reluctant because members within his own party, not to mention the Greens, upon whom he relies, um, quite like it and think that it somehow in their minds. I mean, I would like to sort of submit their minds to science to be studied because they think that taxes like this in British Columbia, a completely insignificant, tiny part of the world that makes no difference in any way to anything ever, and never has. They seem to think that it can sort of unilaterally, single-handedly turn the tide on climate change. And I still, after all my years of thinking about it, I still do not understand why they think that that's true. But they genuinely believe that putting a punitive tax on an essential part of life in British Columbia will somehow make the global temperature decrease or not increase as rapidly, which obviously has zero evidence to support it. No scientist or expert has ever said that that would happen, but they really seem to think that that's true.
Energy is a basic human necessity for everything we do, involving heating, eating, travel, all that kind of stuff. It's a human necessity. And the governments of the NDP and Liberals have been taxing it like it was a luxury and sacrificed Canadians' rich natural wealth for this climate change agenda that, like you just said, Canada plays such a small role in, and yet our per capita GDP is abysmal, and that in our economies is tough, and this hopefully this is the end. But Quebec, we're going to see how Quebecers actually like it. Quebec be the last province with the price of carbon. You're going to see it yourself. How many Quebec plates will be in Ottawa, filling up at the gas pumps, right? Because let's just see. Let's just be aware of that. If you live in places that border Quebec, how many Quebec plates will be going to the other side to pay for no carbon tax versus what they're paying in Quebec now? And we'll see how many of the people actually want to continue to pay the carbon tax.
Yeah, well, it's going to be pretty dramatic. I think there's usually already a little bit of a difference anyway. It's usually a little bit cheaper in Ontario just on any given day. But now, I mean, it was down to 135 when I was just out there having a look around, and I imagine it's going to be considerably higher on the Gatineau side. Yeah, so
I think we should follow that up
I don't know
there.
how they're gonna tolerate that.
Yeah, so we should follow that up and see where that is. There you go. Interesting, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, they are, after all, the population that seems to be the most loyal to this idea that Canada can have an effect on global temperatures. So let's see if they really truly do believe that, I suppose.
U.S. senators devote to overturn Trump tariffs. We'll see if what the senators actually do. Will they actually vote against Trump? It is a Republican-controlled Senate, so there's probably likely little chance, but you never know, right?
Well, it's extremely tight in the Senate, so it wouldn't need much in the way of defection for to change the lay of the land there. But I mean, still, just about the Republican Party is enslaved by Donald Trump, I think, and they're so terrified, they're so afraid, they're so spineless. Even though I would imagine that just in the Senate, I would say you could probably count the amount of senators, Republican senators, that agree with Trump's tariffs on one hand, I would say. But they're all so afraid of him and his movement, which is completely separate of the Republican Party. It's completely distinct, and it's like a grassroots movement, and they are absolutely terrified. They're they're just spineless cowards, and they don't want to get on the wrong side of the Trump machine. But once the economy starts to suck a bit more, I would say, in America. And once it becomes obvious that he's trashed the economy to whatever extent that is, I would say then they'll peep. But that might be a few months yet.
I do see a softening of the rhetoric, and it just seems to, maybe people are just getting tired of it, but I do see a softening of the rhetoric on the tariffs. And like, there's a lot of people coming out against the tariffs in the United States, especially a lot of the businesses and states that border the Canadian border. It's going to really hurt a lot of American people. So, and then the same thing goes for the Doge efforts. I mean, they're even downplaying Elon might return back to his company because, I mean, he's taking a lot of heat. We'll talk about that later too. But let's get into our election coverage, election 2025. And you ready to go, Rama, with election 2025? Well, obviously, the headline in that is the MP quits under that police probe. So Paul Chang abruptly resigned after Carney supported him by saying that he didn't have to resign. But Paul Chang himself has done it after a police probe has been started.
I mean, it's the worst of all worlds for Mark Carney because he lost a lot of political capital, as they call it. His reputation took a hit by defending somebody that had said something that is just way, way, way beyond the pale and sort of borders on, many people have said, borders on something along the lines of treason. And Carney came in and said, "Oh no, he's a good guy. He's got good judgment," and he said sorry, so he's fine, and with the intention of him staying on. And then the police got involved, and then, I mean, he says that he resigned, but I would say there's also a possibility that he got a pretty ominous phone call from the Liberal Party saying, "Disappear, please, or else." And then now he's resigned. So Mark
Yeah.
Carney's taken that hit, and he did it for nothing. He did it for no reason.
Yeah, it seemed odd, right? Like that Carney actually said, he even said he understood his position. So that's kind of weird. And then, obviously the police investigation thing here caused him to step down, which is the right thing to do after saying something like that. I mean, that's a pretty tough thing to come back from.
Yeah, I mean, you're trying to sell out one of your fellow citizens to a hostile foreign power. That's not something that you usually get forgiven for. It's such a bizarre thing. It's such an extreme, weird thing to
But
have happened that,
it's
yeah, I mean, I just can't believe Carney made such a mistake there, I think, on a sort of political level.
But I think sometimes, I mean, it's been said that sometimes the liberals think that if you're attacking the conservatives, there is no um, bad area to go down. Like it just seems like they're worth, attacking at any level, and that seemed to be like a bridge too far.
Yeah, and I think the other thing there is with the Chinese. I mean, the liberals they've not really been very prompt in their condemnation of China, and they're not that hard on China, I would say. Though they would disagree with that completely and point to things like tariffs and that kind of thing, and the Huawei affair in Vancouver there. They would point to that and say, look, no, actually, we have kind of stood our ground. But I mean, yeah, the thing is, I'm not convinced that a lot of people in the Liberal Party actually understand how serious a challenge the Chinese present. But that's the impression that I often get, that they don't take them seriously. I don't think they realize how sophisticated the Chinese state actually is and how effective they can be, and also their attitude. Like, I'm gonna say something here under the assumption that most people don't know this. Maybe most people do know this, I don't know. But it's my impression that most people are not aware that the Chinese state doesn't recognize not only dual nationality. So if you've got a Chinese passport and a Canadian passport, they don't look at you as Canadian at all. That's just completely irrelevant. You're Chinese. That's one thing. But the other thing is that they also, even people who are like second, third, or fourth generation, like Canadian, for example, but of Chinese origin, they also look at them as being basically Chinese. Like they have a very interesting perspective in China, or at the Chinese state level, and it's very much incompatible with the Western system. particularly when it comes to things like identity and nationality. But I just feel, or I wonder anyway, whether the Liberal Party really understands that or really behaves as though they understand that.
Well, they're very bold as well. I mean, the scandal a while back whether they had actually operating Chinese police stations here in Canada.
Yeah, well, that also happens in my benighted, impoverished homeland of England, where there was even an incident where they came out of one of those buildings, like some people inside, from like operatives of the Chinese state, and beat somebody up in the on the sort of British side, and that kind of. But there's an indication. Maybe you're wondering, like, why didn't I hear about this, or why is this not like seared in my mind? And the answer is because Britain is a feeble, weak, poor, hopeless country that needs China. And it's so desperate to be in China's good books that it didn't really make much fuss about it. And then if you think about Britain, which is a bigger economy than Canada, you think the British are spineless. The British also have nuclear weapons and like a navy, sort of. Bear in mind that the British are just straight on their knees and they're kissing the feet of the Chinese, begging them basically to be friends with them. Now imagine what the Canadian perspective is. It's even more spineless, if you could imagine that. So there's no real resistance to China because it's so powerful and it's so wealthy and it's so influential when it comes to economics and everything else that people are just, people in Canada at least, let's say, absolutely terrified about upsetting them.
Yeah, and then again, if you're a candidate, you can imagine that the outlets are pouring through your social media posts, and they found something on a conservative candidate who was joking that Trudeau should get the death penalty, and conservative have booted him out of the election here and said it was clearly unacceptable. So that is
Yeah, he also joked about public hangings, which I think is another aspect of it, but it's the Trudeau thing. I think that's really set people off there.
so that's Mark McKenzie. So yeah, so I mean, obviously Polyev calling for Paul Chang's dismissal. So obviously you have to use the same treatment when you're talking about your own candidates, right?
Well, yeah, Polyev got rid of him basically. Or, I mean, I don't know if it was Polyev, but I'm sure it would have been. But the Conservative Party got rid of him basically instantly. Just said no thanks. But it's, if it's just, I do think it's about the Trudeau thing. That's the real reason he's gone. But there's also a lot of, if you look at the CTV article, there's a lot of talk about the death penalty there, and that's a very controversial thing to say in certain company. Like that's a very controversial thing to say among like MPs and the media, but to express your your support of the death penalty in most other situations is not that controversial actually, and there's a massive amount of support for the death penalty among the Canadian population. So, I mean, it depends what they actually got rid of them for because they didn't specify. But if it's for the death penalty thing, then that's quite controversial to remove somebody for supporting that. But yeah, he also kind of he made that a moot point by saying that Trudeau should be executed, really, didn't he?
Yeah, and then Polyev launching more platform pieces and coming out with more. Pierre Polyev commits to 5 energy sector asks to end dependence on the U.S., and he lays out those 5 points there. And he says it's all because Canada is now ranks number 23 in the World Bank's ease of doing business, and 7th place drop since 2015. And Canada canceled 16 major energy projects and resulting in $176 billion hit to our economy. It now takes almost 18 years to open a mine. So he's pledging to, and these include repealing Bill C-69, the No More Pipeline bill, setting a target of 6 months for approvals, scrapping the emissions cap, and removing the industrial carbon tax that's still there, and introducing First Nations loan guarantees. So another platform piece that is pro-energy, and that lends into the CEOs that are asking for that energy policy.
Yeah, though they did also ask for, they said that the Canadian federal government should follow the Americans' lead and declare an energy emergency and use that as the overarching justification for all of these actions. But Polyev didn't mention that this
Uh,
morning. But he did have it was kind of a cringy moment actually, where he had like a marker pen and he was going over. It's like this big, you know, there's like a big sort of piece of paper or whatever, and he was like he was doing a tick next to the Conservatives and an X next to the Liberals. It was pretty like low tech. But yeah, I mean, just in a political sense though, I feel like it would have been better if he'd said that we should declare an energy emergency, because that's something that people would have immediately kind of understood and it would have grasped their attention. Whereas this doesn't really get your attention, I don't think. It's like, I'm going to get rid of these five things that these CEOs have asked for. It's like, all right. But it's like this is the difference, I think, between Trump and Polyev. It's ironic that they're often compared by Polyev's enemies, but the reality is that Trump is on another level entirely when it comes to political communication. Trump is so much more skilled than Polyev at political communication that it's almost laughable to put them in the same category at all. Trump, that's why Trump says energy emergency. It's like, whoa, okay, like this is like it gets your attention straight away. Whereas Polyev is like much more about the details, and he's almost a little bit nerdy, and I think he loses his audience a little bit.
And the Liberals have put out a statement as well on this morning. They put out a piece, and it does not much real new stuff in there. So they're saying that as of today, they're officially canceling the divisive carbon tax, saving Canadians an average of 18 cents a liter. I don't know if divisive. Again, Canadians didn't like it, so that's why it's gone. Not because of Polyev. Well, I guess Polyev should claim victory on it then. If they're giving him the victory, why wouldn't he take the victory? And then they talk about delivering a middle class tax cut, saving a two household income about $825 a year. Polyev definitely packaged his better by saying double that and saying it's a 15% tax cut. And then getting your government back in the business of building homes. I don't know if the government should ever be in the business of building homes. And they've reduced their target. The Liberal target was 650,000 homes a year. CMHC said that's not even doable. 272 was the record, somewhere in there. Now the Liberals have said they'll do 500,000 homes, and the government will start building the homes themselves. And they're eliminating the GST for the first-time home buyers. And you and I actually introduced that when we had a discussion with Sean Fraser, the housing minister, and we said, why don't we do that? And Sean Fraser said at the time that we didn't really have, he kind of just waffled on it, right? So that really wasn't in the plan right now. That was a Polyev plan, but Polyev now has increased it to what, 1.3 or something?
Yeah.
And then the other thing they're saying.
So he said it would be 60,000 that you could save, whereas Mark Carney's got 50, so he's been gazumped there.
And then expanding dental coverage for Canadians aged 18 to 64 to get 4.5 more million Canadians getting some more dental coverage. And there you go. So nothing really new in there. They just kind of put out their stuff, whereas Polyev seems to be laying down a new policy every day, it seems like. It's like
yeah,
Christmas.
he's been working hard, hasn't he?
Yep.
I
It
would
seems
also
like,
point out, by the way, something that you didn't mention. You mentioned that they said divisive, but if you also look at we should say for the people listening here that we're looking at the Liberal Party's press release here, and where they use the word divisive, but they also put carbon tax in speech
yeah.
marks there. You see, it's like what the plebs know as the carbon tax, because they've always refused to call it that, haven't they?
Well, because I remember when they were doing a hearing there, one of the MPs, Liberal MPs, said there is no carbon tax. So how are they removing it? Someone should go back to her and say, because she said there is no carbon tax in Canada. It's a levy. Someone should go back to
Yeah.
her. Like, how can you remove something that doesn't exist?
Yeah, and Trudeau, he liked to call it a price on pollution, didn't he? That was his favorite term.
Yes, 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 yes. There you go. And the media for the debates has dropped that blacklist, so it looks like you can get in. We're going to have to get you in there because it was very selective who got into that thing, but the court said can't do that. So he had to turn to the courts, and that was, I think, Rebel was really one that fought that, right? Because they were blacklisted. Many media outlets are blacklisted. They even call this is a Holly Doan's Blacklock story, and the government has said that she is yellow journalism. I don't know what that means. Do you know what that means? Yellow? They got all these
Yellow
kind of
journalism is
buzzwords.
back in the day in the sort of like late 19th century, early 20th century, the cheapest kind of paper that you could
I
use to print a newspaper on was like yellowy, and it was basically yellow journalism was a term for like it's like gutter journalism. It's like the cheapest, crappiest kind of journalism, and they have the cheapest paper, which is a bit yellow. But obviously, to say that about Blacklocks is to reveal yourself to have absolutely no idea about the 21st century Canadian media landscape, because that's just false in the extreme to refer to Blacklocks as being that. It's just nonsense.
Yeah, we're going to do a story on their media spending too. That they're the liberals saying that they are, helping independent journalism, and they continued this Meta ban and said that they would never bow down to Meta, but now they're spending millions of dollars with Meta, and Bill C-18 still exists, and nobody's asking that question. The media's not asking that question because they're living off the trough of the liberal handouts.
Indeed, yeah.
Anyway, we got a clip here from Pierre Poilievre here. We're going to play this clip here. It's a bit of a longer one, but we'll play it.
Press.
Hi there.
I
Good
can let you
morning.
take a drink of water if you'd like.
Thank you, sir. That's very nice of you. I wish it was something stronger, but I'll take it. They've got a lot of breweries around here, right? Moosehead's right over there. So that's our next stop?
I think we're going to Union Shop instead.
Oh, well, that will be fun too, but I think we should have worked that in. And we should have offered you guys some Moosehead before the press conference. I think you would have asked more sympathetic questions.
I've been to the small batch here. It's quite good.
Okay.
Sir, there are reports on mounting frustrations about how the campaign is going and the trailing polling numbers. What's your plan to turn things around, and will you make changes to the campaign leadership?
Some people have said that I should stop talking about the doubling housing costs that have denied an entire generation the chance to own a home after the lost Liberal decade. They say that we shouldn't be debating why single moms are lined up at food banks in record numbers after the lost Liberal decade. They suggest that we shouldn't debate why 50,000 of our citizens have lost their lives to drug overdoses under the radical Liberal drug policies. That we should just forget that after the lost Liberal decade of rising costs and crime and a falling economy under America's thumb, that we should just ignore all of those things. I disagree. My purpose in politics is to restore Canada's promise so that anyone from anywhere can achieve anything. It's hard work. It gets you a great life and a beautiful.
There you go. You can go listen to that whole thing. He goes through talking about, the reason I played it is because, there's a lot of people saying that, the polls are definitely pointing one way, but then they're saying the crowds are huge, and then that was a question on the polls. And then we have this next one, just an image there. I guess they're saying, this is Mark Nixon, who does a lot on X here, saying that Poilievre filled a hangar in Fredericton, and then Mark Carney filled a pub, and they're just showing the comparisons of some of the crowds that are coming up. But the polls definitely looking like Poilievre has lost so much of the ground where he had basically like a super majority, and then the polls showing that it looks like a Carney majority.
Yeah, well, polls, they're often wrong, and also there's still plenty of time left. This is, all the political wonks will tell you that like this is the time when people actually pay attention to politics, whereas for the rest of the, 4 years or whatever, they don't care. They don't really, the average person doesn't really care. So, I mean, it can fluctuate, but I would say that recently, anyway, in the recent elections, the polls in Canada have actually been pretty accurate, I would say, within like a pretty sort of small margin of error. And they are consistently coming out now saying that Carney is going to win, or the Liberals are going to win. So, yeah, I would say as it stands, it looks like Poilievre's mincemeat. He's got to do something. He's got to change the direction so far of this election. And we got an email not so long ago, in the last sort of 20 minutes or something, where the Conservatives were announcing that Pierre Poilievre is going to deliver a keynote address in Toronto tomorrow morning. So maybe he's going to come out all guns blazing against Trump because tomorrow is Trump's tariff day, isn't it? So maybe he's going to try and change the conversation tomorrow.
There you go. And then we got a clip here to play from CBC, and they're talking about some of the missteps that Mark Carney has made. I mean, there's been quite a few. And I'd say that Paul Chang one ranks right up there. And I don't even know which misstep is the worst, the lie about the Brookfield Asset Management moving, or this one. I think this is a huge one, I think, this Paul Chang thing.
Some momentum that the polls are showing, but the drip, 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 mistake after mistake, whether it's getting Polytechnique wrong, whether it's getting his candidate's name wrong, whether it's getting bad French translation on his announcement today, or whether it's keeping a candidate that many Canadians may feel that is outside of the mainstream. There is an underlying current of concern over foreign interference. I don't think it's front of mind ballot question, but the question becomes, how will the drip, drip, drip affect Mr. Carney, a brand new politician and somebody untested in an election?
Rob, what do you think?
I would begin with a simple question. If I had said that on the air, on this show, would you have me back? I think
Maybe to explain yourself, but not as a regular.
That's right.
You know?
That is the answer to the question. You would not have me back, and if I was still running this place, I wouldn't be back.
Yeah.
So I think, to Brad's point, we're in day 4. How long will they continue with this? I don't think that they can continue much further. They haven't answered the question about Chandra Arya. They haven't answered questions about Hang Dong, why they were not allowed to run. Why is this guy allowed to run and they're not allowed to run? Becomes the next part of it. This is going to go on. I think inevitably he will probably be asked to step aside, or he'll offer to do it. If that happens, it will be because of politics rather than principle. He had a moment here to actually establish principle.
And obviously, he has stepped aside since that aired, but it just talked about the mistakes there that have been made.
And it was because of the police, you know. That's why he went in the end.
Yeah.
That's why Chang was removed in the end. So like, it wasn't quite politics. It was the law, you know. But the only thing is, like, these talking heads here, these like experts, they probably call themselves, they're sat around and they're talking about like Carney's mistakes, and they're saying like, oh, eventually, you know, this is gonna tell. We're gonna see the polls are gonna change. I wouldn't be so sure, because Mark Carney has been making these mistakes now since he sort of swanned in to become prime minister. He's made so many mistakes. You know, he was accused of downplaying how serious the fentanyl or overdose crisis is in Canada. That's a big one, and he did it in Kelowna, like one of the worst places you could possibly say something like that. He revealed himself to be, I mean, I don't know what to say. Like, let's say he made some like serious fundamental errors in his area of expertise of economics when he talked about semiconductors and the effects of higher steel prices. You know, and then they alluded to it there, where he got a name wrong of a candidate in Quebec, which is just humiliating. He did it more than once. And then he also got the university at which students were murdered in that shooting that you often hear a lot about from the Liberal Party and in Quebec, because they use that as a kind of justification to try and ban guns, don't they? And he got that wrong. Like, I mean, he got the university wrong. It's kind of like, he said like Concordia University. It's just like, I can't believe he did that, really. But he's making so many mistakes, and yet look at the polls. They just keep going up for him. I almost feel like people don't care. I'm getting the impression that Mark Carney could like headbutt a baby or something, and he would still be doing all right. It's like, I think that there's a section of the Canadian population that has just made its mind up about Carney, and they think he's like the bee's knees, and they think Poilievre's crap.
Well, we said that yesterday, that it's a conversation I had with somebody that is a staunch Liberal supporter, and said that basically what you said, but worse. And that does of those people. But again, you have to look at the stadiums and stuff like that are being filled, hangars and that, and you have to wonder, and I know this from just like working with government, that people show up when they're angry and frustrated, and you don't get that kind of turnout unless people are really frustrated and angry. So it'll remain to be seen, because I mean, polls are small numbers, but they're supposed to be a good cross section. But It remains to be seen and seen where this goes, right? We have quite a few days left before we start to see something that looks even more interesting. But I think policies as they come out, which party's going to do more for the voter, right? Do you know what I mean? I think that's what's all about. The other one that we haven't talked about much is Poilievre is increasing the TFSA, one of the greatest gifts that was ever given to Canadians, and that was a Stephen Harper thing that was given back in when Harper came in. He gave the TFSA to Canadians, which is a tax-free savings account. And one of the promises from the Liberals way back when, we're going to suggest this one, Ian, and see if it takes any hold. One of the promises from the Liberals was to get rid of the GST. Remember the big red book? Jean Chrétien promised to get rid of the GST. And then when Harper won, they never did get rid of the GST. When Harper took government, he reduced it because it was 7%. So Harper reduced it to 5%. So Poilievre wants to make some promises that were made by Liberals a long time ago. Instead of just axing the GST on homes, why don't we just get rid of the GST, period? We already have an income tax system. Why do we have a GST for Canadians? It was supposed to be a temporary tax. The Liberals promised to get rid of it. Harper got rid of like 2% of it. Why don't Poilievre, if he wants to make some roads here, we'll put that suggestion out there. Axe the tax completely.
That would be interesting because then he could resurrect all of his signs that
Yeah,
say
you
axe the
can
tax.
reuse the signs like that GST thing. If you want to stoke the Canadian economy, people buying stuff, because that's what makes the economy go around. If you want to increase our GDP, money velocity is it. And if you take away the tax, you would see so much. You would get it back all in income tax anyway. It's just that GST is a punitive tax as well, and it should be removed. Look at Alberta and the differences. The differences in British Columbia and Alberta for buying an SUV, like a higher end SUV, like a Cadillac. Cadillac SUV. I was at the auto show a while ago. Not this one, but the one before that. $32,000 difference in taxation for an Albertan buying that same vehicle versus a British Columbian buying that same exact vehicle.
Yeah, and they talk about barriers and how they want to remove all of the barriers to trade and all the rest of it, all the regulations. But obviously, there's no way that you can go to Alberta and get that car on the cheap and bring it back into BC, because that's like you might as well have committed murder. They'll be chasing you with like 10 cop cars if you try and do that. But yeah, would they ever make it a fair and open market and a free market so that you can go to the place where you buy your item in the place where it's cheapest within the same country?
So we know that Chrystia Freeland watches. So there you go, Chrystia. Here's a free one for you. The Liberals' promise was Jean Chrétien to get rid of the GST. Never delivered on that promise. The famous red book from Jean Chrétien. Stephen Harper did 2% of it. Let's finish it. Get rid of the GST. That'll be the biggest platform. That'd be the biggest platform piece ever.
It would be huge, that, wouldn't it? And it seems a no-brainer for Poilievre, although it would make his the no GST on homes promise moot, wouldn't it? He'd have to get rid of that one.
Well, here's an easy way to sell that, though. You just say, listen, I thought about the no GST on homes. Why don't we do better? This was a Liberal promise, and Harper went like a third of the way. We're going to do it all. GST is gone. The day I get elected, GST.
It would be huge, but I mean, Carney, just now, I watched Carney this morning in Winnipeg. He attacked Poilievre in a very interesting way. He said he was talking about the tariffs, the retaliatory tariffs, and he was saying, we want to get all that money from the retaliatory tariffs, and we want to give it to the workers who are affected. And then he said, unlike Pierre Poilievre, who, and I can't remember exactly how he phrased it, but he said, unlike Pierre Poilievre, who just wants to throw it away in tax cuts. He said something along those lines. It was very dismissive. And it was something along those lines. It wasn't verbatim necessarily, but it was that kind of dismissive attitude. And I just thought, hold on a minute, like, what are you talking about? Like, throw it away or like waste it or whatever he said. It's kind of like, that money doesn't belong to you anyway. It doesn't belong to the state in the first place. It's taxed. It's taken from the people. So there's obviously a massive philosophical divide there. And Poilievre, you're right. I think he could kind of exploit that.
Well, there you go, Pierre Poilievre. If you want to win the election, axe the tax completely. Get rid of the GST. Absolutely get rid of the GST. You want to see the economy fire up? That one he did yesterday where it says the reinvestment tax credit with no capital gains tax, amazing. But if you really want to stoke everybody, because that doesn't affect most people, right? That's people that have money. If you want to affect the common person, get rid of the GST. Take another step from the Liberals when they did it, that tax on tinsel and tacos, and make that ridiculous tax holiday into a real meaningful tax cut. There you go. We're campaigning for it right there.
Why not?
Why not? There you go. And there you go. Here's something. The Ukrainian-Canadian Congress says Canada needs to go nuclear. There you go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this might seem shocking to a lot of people, but I would say it's kind of it's a very logical conclusion when you add the pieces together. So if America is going to step back from NATO, going to step back from NORAD and all the rest of it, if Canada wants to assert its sovereignty in the north, and if the likes of China and Russia and all the rest of it continue to probe around in the Arctic and look at expansion, then realistically, the only possible defense that Canada would have in a world like that is nuclear weapons. It's never going to have aircraft carrier groups and huge like divisions of soldiers and armor and all the rest of it. I don't think Canada, given its population size and its demographics, given how like the average age in Canada is 40, I don't think Canada is going to be able to assemble a particularly, it's not going to be able to assemble like a top 5 military, is it? It's just not realistic. So in that scenario, the only thing that you could possibly use to defend yourself is nuclear weapons.
Yeah, only 3 NATO countries have nuclear warheads, and that's the US, UK, and France. And there you go.
And as one of our viewers there on YouTube mentioned earlier, the British, they actually lease the missiles from the Americans, the missiles that carry the nuclear warheads. That's just how stupid the British are. And not only that, but they need to go back to the Americans to get them to get the latest software update and all the rest of it. So the British are just basically enslaved by the Americans when it comes to the nuclear weapon. So in NATO, there are only 2 like truly independent nuclear systems, and that's France and the US.
And on the other side of the coin there, on the non-NATO side, the ones that have nuclear weaponry, China, India, Israel, North Korea, Pakistan, and Russia. And the odd one there is, a couple odd ones in there. How did Israel get it? Obviously, we know how they got it. North Korea, Pakistan, and India, obviously, arch rivals as well. And there you go.
Israel and Pakistan obtained it through, in part, theft of technology from other people. The Russians also got it through theft to an extent. They had communist agents in the American military who stole the nuclear secrets. I can't actually remember with India. I feel like they also stole some of it. And then the Americans, of course, also stole it. They stole it from the British and the Canadians, who helped to develop the technology in the first place, and then were promptly kicked to the curb when the Americans didn't feel like sharing it at the end.
And that all had to do with the 1945 Manhattan Project, and where Canada participated in that and made the heavy water there in British Columbia, actually, in Trail at the Cominco plant there.
Yeah, it's one of the greatest betrayals. I mean, the Americans they've betrayed basically everybody that's ever been their friend in dramatic ways, but that's probably one of the biggest betrayals in the history of the United States, I would say.
And speaking of the United Kingdom, here you go, the 4 stars of the this new movie that's coming out. I'll let you do this one because it's from your homeland there.
Yeah, well, they're making like 4 movies. It's quite an interesting concept. They're making four biopics for each of the members of the Beatles, and they're going to kind of like run them together, and they all kind of, obviously because it's about the Beatles and they all knew each other. So I guess it's going to be quite an interesting sort of cinematic experiment, let's say, because they're all going to be linked together, but they're all going to be sort of independent as well. But anyway, and then they've now released the cast, and based on what I've sort of looked at the reaction to it, and it's very, very negative. Very negative.
They don't look like anything like the Beatles, for one. You know what I mean? Like they don't even have a resemblance to the Beatles, and it's tough
Yeah.
to play that. It's just because it's such. I mean, I still think it's the best band that's ever played, and it's the timeless music that you could play at any era, and people would love the music. Obviously, there's that movie that was made right when the Beatles didn't exist. The music is just so amazing, and the genius of that band, coming together. And I think you have to be very, very careful when you're casting for it. And it doesn't look like to me that it looks like, I don't know. I guess you'd have to see it, but it sure doesn't seem to fit very well. But
Yeah, it's just a bit odd. Yeah, it's a bit of an odd one. I mean, and I agree that they're basically the greatest band of all time. Every cliche you've ever heard about the Beatles, I basically think is true, that they really are the best that have ever played together. But like, if you really get deep into your Beatlemania and you read about them, they're also like extremely interesting people, and like really, really funny and witty and creative, and had very interesting lives. Like
I
there
think
is a really interesting story. It goes way beyond the music. So I would be sad if they didn't capture who they were, because one of the most important things about the Beatles, for me anyway, is that they came from a completely random part of England, which was that they were born sort of at the end of the war, that sort of time, or during the Second World War, and they grew up in like a poor country that just sucks, and was on they experienced rationing and all that kind of thing, and they were in a poor part of the poor half of Britain, in a pretty obscure place. Most people know about Liverpool because of, like, I guess, like ships and the Beatles, really. But it's not exactly like London. It's not like a world center, and yet they were still the best musicians, basically, of the 20th century, I would say. Like that's crazy to me. And they were from really poor backgrounds. They were like working class lads. John Lennon was from the most prosperous family, but even then, he had like a really hard life. I feel like that's the most interesting aspect, but I don't know how, like, Sam Mendes and these actors, I don't know if they know anything about life in Northern England, I mean, I'm not sure that they're going to be able to figure that one out, so it kind of remains to be seen.
And the biggest puzzle to me is that there's a few really good Beatles documentaries. Some of them I think on Netflix and that too, and I've watched them. There's so much video of the Beatles, like they're hanging out because they actually did a really good job of documenting their own lives, right? Like there's so much good footage. So why not just put it together that way instead of using four different actors to kind of like put it together and do a storyline on it? But I don't know, like I said, they did such a great job of recording some of their stuff and some of their concerts and all that kind of stuff. I mean, some of that stuff, the footage, if you watch the first time they arrived in America, oh my God, right? I mean, gives you shivers, right? I mean, I'm sure you've watched that over and over again, right?
Yeah, well, like the Shea Stadium where they're there with their sweaty faces, and it's like hundreds of thousands of people, it seems like, in the stadium. Yeah, it's fascinating, really. I mean, like, they were pioneers in so many ways, weren't they? And almost like on a social level as well, that reaction to them, the kind of the insane, over the top reaction to them from fans, particularly the girls.
Mm.
Like that was also like new and very strange, and it's
And
like just almost everything they did was novel and unprecedented in a way. So yeah.
if my memory serves me correctly, they played Vancouver, and that concert was canceled because the fans were just going crazy.
Well, yeah. Well, also like pretty important shows in Montreal, I believe, as well. Like they did have a sort of interesting relationship with Canada.
Yeah, no, I mean, it definitely, when they got off the plane, I can still vividly see that the first time they touched American soil. It was just amazing getting off that plane, right? And I think the first gig was the Ed Sullivan Show, was it not?
That sounds about right, yeah. And kind of like imagine the pressure that was on them there, and just they still managed it. I often think like when Paul McCartney first played Yesterday, he had to do that by himself because it was just him, completely unaccompanied by anyone else, just had the acoustic guitar. And I can't remember if he did that in the US or England, but I mean, can you just imagine the pressure on this like young lad? He was only like 20 or something. He had to go out by himself without his friends around him, and every single noise that was being made came from him. It had to be absolutely perfect. And it was perfect. Absolutely, like you didn't miss a note. But it's like they were so they were so confident. They were so cool under pressure as well. Like there's just, we could probably talk about this all day, to be honest.
Yeah.
There's a lot about them that is fascinating.
And then our show itself, the Really Big Show, has its own roots in a salute to Ed Sullivan, the Really Big Show. So there you go. And Ed Sullivan used that term all the time, and just like, and we have a really big show for you, and we do have a really big show for you too. And the Beatles was a huge get for him as well, and also a really good way to launch into the American market, right?
Indeed. Yeah, I mean, back in the day when it really mattered to go on shows like that, obviously nowadays there's no equivalent, is there?
And we'll just, there you go. Someone says, great way to lose viewers is talk about the Beatles. Well, hey, there you go. We're almost done, so you can just have some patience there. Beatles are a great band. There you go.
I mean, it's literally the most popular band in the history of the world. I mean, I think there are many more people that like them than dislike them. So I think whoever that is in the minority. It doesn't seem to be very happy about being in that minority.
There you go. In the markets, gold holding on to that $3,000 mark and falling a bit. Gold is hanging on there. Gold is looking good. I mean, it's the geopolitical situations that are continue to cause that drive gold higher. And just like anything, when something's moving in a trend is your friend. Don't fight the trend. Bitcoin looks like it wants to go up. It looks like it's starting to build for its launch. There you go. Again, if you're a technical analyst, look at that chart. Tell me what you see. Definitely more than willing to listen to what you have to say. You got some comments on that. And then Canadian dollar. What's going to happen tomorrow? Tariffs? No tariffs? Who knows, right?
Well, we've even heard hints last week that like there are three categories of country. One is friendly, one is sort of neutral, and then the other one is China. And apparently we're in the friendly category. That's the last sort of serious and bit of information that came out there. So I mean, God knows. He seems to absolutely love Mark Carney, so maybe he'll cut Carney some slack.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard from some people that I don't know if you even should mention it, but I mean, some people have said on LinkedIn is that Trump wants Carney to win because it weakens Canada, and they would push for a separatist movement in Canada. So I don't know, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but it does seem like he favors Mark Carney. So you have to ask yourself why.
Yep. Well, he's a trickster, isn't he? So I mean, I would assume that it's not for honest reasons. It's not for good Christian reasons.
And if you don't like the Beatles, you probably don't like Elon Musk either. So the man that seems like probably one of our biggest geniuses on this planet, that everyone seems to love to hate. Not everyone, definitely a lot of people love to hate, has acquired X in an all-stock transaction as XAI bought X. There you go. Like, he loves that name X, eh? So X bought XAI, or XAI bought X. And that combination value is XAI at $80 billion and X at 33. And that he bought X, I think it was around $45 billion. But XAI is...
Bit of a weird one though, isn't it? I mean, I saw a good meme where it was Elon Musk shaking hands with Elon Musk as Elon Musk looks over. That kind of sums up this deal, doesn't it?
Well, he's got so many companies that are all, and this is the part that people don't get. He doesn't just have one company. He's got I think 5 companies that are leaders in leading fields. Like, think of that for a while. Like a lot of these Canadian politicians that want to virtue signal all the time and want to poop all over Elon Musk, somehow don't realize that he has 5, they're not just leading companies. Like in AI, many analysts will tell you the number one company in the world for AI is Tesla and XAI, and they're all kind of commingled. And SpaceX is definitely the leading space company. Starlink, the leading global satellite company, communications company, and then also Neuralink, that it promises to make blind people see and quadriplegics walk again. I mean, those are pretty lofty things. And also the Boring Company. I mean, so many leading technologies. And I don't understand why he keeps doing this Doge thing and taking this heat. I guess he thinks he's saving the world from it, but holy cow, just think what he could bring humanity and let somebody else do that other stuff. But hey, because he's taking a lot of heat, and we're going to see some of that heat coming up next year. So in the EV section, Pam Bondi, we're going to play this tweet here from Pam Bondi, the Attorney General of the United States of America.
I've made it clear, if you take part in the wave of domestic terrorism against Tesla properties, we will find you, arrest you, and put you behind bars. Today, I'm proud to announce that the Department of Justice has unsealed federal charges against another Tesla attacker. We've charged Cooper Frederick in the firebombing of a Tesla dealership that occurred on March 7th in Loveland, Colorado. All of these cases are a serious threat to public safety. Therefore, there will be no negotiating. We are seeking 20 years in prison. The crime was committed in Colorado, and thanks to the great investigative work by the FBI, the defendant was arrested in Plano, Texas. Let this be a warning. You can run, but you cannot hide. Justice is coming.
I mean, the Tesla protests are pretty out of hand, and then there's a whole bunch. They're starting in Canada here as well, and then people. I mean, the protest is one thing, the violence is another thing, and then the attacking people, individual people. We're going to play this next clip, and then we'll talk about it. This next clip is a lady that was actually attacked.
A look at this. This is video from the victim's Tesla camera. It shows a green car pulling up to a Tesla on busy Route 66, then swerving in front to box the Tesla in. The driver then walks over to the 61-year-old woman in the Tesla and reportedly starts hitting her while she's sitting behind the wheel. At one point, the woman says she bit the man's hand. Moments later, the passenger of the green car appears to walk over and pull the attacker away. They finally get back in their car and drive off. We spoke to the victim today, who said she was terrified and can't understand why anyone would do this.
I was just stunned, and I wished that I would have had.
I mean, I think it literally has to be losing your mind to attack somebody because they're driving a Tesla.
Yeah, I mean, especially if somebody might have bought it way before Elon Musk, back when Elon Musk was a Democrat and a Joe Biden supporter. So like,
But it doesn't even matter.
They're kind of beating up their own as well, aren't they?
But there is no justification for violence on another individual because of what they drive. It's just ridiculous, right? It's absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely, completely ridiculous.
And it's not like he is. It's not like Elon Musk is there in a factory by himself churning out these cars. It's like he just happens to be the CEO. It's an enterprise of like tens of thousands of people, isn't it?
100,000 employees plus, and most North American made, most American made car factory, and then and probably also one of the best cars ever made. There's that, and then people, and then like these people are winning really stupid prizes. Like this guy's getting charged under the Terrorism Act. They got another guy that firebombed a Tesla dealership, and when they went to arrest them, the FBI, they found, I think it was like 10 automatic weapons, bombs, and a communist manifesto, and all this stuff. And these are the people that are just, like, obviously they're not of sound mind.
Yeah, well, there seems to be a sort of a legion of these people in America that whatever it is, whatever the sort of the cultural event is, whether it's like Black Lives Matter we saw during all those mad riots and stuff, like there just seems to be an abundance of people that are just in America anyway, they're just ready to go crazy. Like the guy that obviously tried to murder Trump as well.
It seems like it seems like, like when there was that big Republican pushback or conservative pushback on Bud Light for what they did there. Nobody was burning down bars, though. They just stopped buying the product. So if you don't like Tesla, just don't buy it. You don't have to burn down everybody else's Tesla and attack completely innocent people on the highway. That's like you're going to win a really stupid thing like jail time. They're going to ruin your own life because of your rage. Like, what's with the rage? Like, really, what's with the rage? Anyway, we'll leave that there.
Well, it's, I mean, not to go into it in too much depth, but there are academics and experts and people that know about this kind of thing that are under the impression that the United States is currently engaged in a kind of very low level civil war right now. And that would certainly tally with this kind of thing, wouldn't it?
Yeah, well, you're gonna win a stupid prize. But here's something for you. Our meme section where we try to have a little bit of fun. So this cat does the first selfie of himself. There you go. So cat selfies on their way.
Well, I think, he's justified in doing that because he's a very handsome cat.
There you go. And he's even got the aperture right. He's got the background kind of bokeh.
Yeah,
not only
pretty
is
gloomy
this-
scene in the background there, though.
Not only is this a cool cat, he knows how to take a pic, right?
Reminds me of my family cat when I was younger called Winston. Actually looks very similar.
Yeah.
Reminding me of Winnie there.
We had a striped cat like that. I think there's a name for that type of cat. I don't know. Maybe somebody can tell us. But our name for that cat was Tiger. Pretty original, right? We had an orange cat too, and his name was Corange. Definitely not the most ingenious names. But my favorite cat was a black and white cat, and I named it Spucker. So there you go.
I think that kind of cat's called a tabby cat, isn't it? Just a straight up tabby.
Could be. And VD says it looks like AI. Well, VD, that's pretty obvious. Like, unless they've trained robotic cats. Hey, that's coming though. They got robotic dogs, but this is definitely an AI shot of the cat. There you go. And then this one here, we got this sneaked out there. As Trump's been up here in Kelowna looking at golf courses, he had his makeup man, JD Vance, there putting on the orange paint for him, right? Because I thought this one was hilarious.
It is. That's one of the best memes in a while. That is it. I mean, it does kind of highlight, and I do find myself like genuinely wondering why, quite often, why he does this. Why does he wear the bronzer or whatever? What's the actual deep down? What's the motivation? Like, what is he thinking?
There you go. Glenn said he texted all his family and friends and said that he's running for the Liberal Party of Canada in Alberta. Good one, Glenn. There you go. You got up till noon, actually. The thing is that you're supposed to do your April Fool's Days jokes by noon, and you're supposed to come clean at noon. We came clean right away because we didn't want to get people all upset about Trump buying a couple golf courses here in Kelowna. So,
well, they would have been down there with their, whatever, paint or something, pies. They'd have been throwing pies.
Pies, yeah, probably tearing up. They taking their pickup trucks out there. I don't know what, if you don't like Teslas, what is it that you drive? Like, what kind of car do you drive to protest the Tesla? Because it used to be the Democrats that were driving the Teslas, and the rednecks, or the guys driving trucks didn't like Teslas. Now they're buying Teslas, and I'm not sure what the Liberals will be buying now.
Yeah, they can't get the Chinese EVs. Maybe they're all driving Nissan Leafs.
Nissan leaves, and Nissan about to go. Needs to find a buyer, or there will be no more Nissan left.
Yeah.
Anyway, and
well,
this is
there's also that Ioniq or something, isn't there? The Hyundai. I keep hearing a lot about that one. Is it Hyundai, that one?
Hyundai Ioniq. I think so. I believe.
Yeah, I keep hearing that that's apparently like really good. So maybe that's what they're going to buy.
And then for the last one, for the big one here, CNN publishes a real news story for April Fool's Day.
Is that the same one? That's the same sign that was vandalized during the Black Lives Matter riots, isn't it? That was a surreal moment.
And they were the ones promoting the Black Lives Matter, and then it turned against them. That's usual. The left turns against itself and actually starts to eat itself, right? Which is, you're seeing a lot of that in the United States right now. And we still haven't seen the Liberals eat themselves, but we are seeing the Liberals eat the New Democrats, though, right? So we actually even got an email this morning that said a former, they're jumping on this bandwagon, a former guy that ran for the NDP is now saying he's supporting the Liberals because they must defeat the Conservatives. So there you go.
Yeah. Well, it seems that's been reflected in the polls, isn't it? Because the NDP's support has just completely collapsed.
I'm going to do a post on LinkedIn for anybody that's interested. I'm going to do a post on LinkedIn versus fundamentals versus a narrative. And it's going to be about Tesla. So if you follow me, I'm on LinkedIn, just as my name is, you'll find me there. But fundamentals versus a narrative. And the narrative right now is very, very, very negative for Tesla. The fundamentals, very, very, very strong. So I don't know, you tell me what that equals. And we'll go from there. Anything else you want to add today on April Fool's Day? It's Looks like the sky's breaking behind us here in Kelowna. The traffic moving fine. Looks like a beautiful day. And again, you can take your car out and you should see a 17 cents drop in the gas price. We'll see how long that 17 cent drop lasts. Eh?
Yeah. The only thing that I can think to keep an eye out on is Danielle Smith is she's about to speak now. She might have something not too happy to say about the carbon tax and whether or not it really has been abolished and all that kind of thing. So Danielle Smith fans, get ready for that.
And there you go, Pierre Poilievre and Chrystia Freeland. I don't know who wants to take it first, but you can credit Jim and Ian of Now Media Group on the axe the tax on the GST. Get rid of the GST. You will see a booming economy. I guarantee it. Look at that, eh? We're even going to put a guarantee behind it. And then while you're axing that, we ask you to axe Bill C-18. If any, we're going to try and get some Liberal candidates in here. Nobody seems to want to answer that question. Odd, though, eh? On Bill C-18. That's basically crushed independent media and made the rest of the media beholden to the Liberal government that hands out its crumbs.
Yeah, free the media. That would be nice, wouldn't it?
Free the media and stop the media living off the government handouts.
Yeah, like have a serious think about that if you haven't already, but think about that is very nuts. It's very, very crazy, that, isn't it? And if you just run it around in your head for a few minutes and think about how wise it is to have the government prop up the media, which is supposed to scrutinize them. Not too smart.
We're going to ask lots of questions when we get a chance here from the Liberal candidates, because it also endangers, especially here in the central Okanagan, endangers the lives of community members because we can't get our news onto Facebook where people look. And even CBC did an article and said most people turn to social media for their news. And even the federal government, who broke their Facebook ban, said that the reason they had to start paying Facebook is because they realized most Canadians get their news on Facebook. But hey, the federal government and the Liberals say news media outlets can't put their news on there, but they can pay, the federal government can pay to put it on there. And likely they're not going to do anything during the election because now they get to control the narrative by just paying to put ads on there and not allowing outlets like ourselves to put our content on there. That in itself should be a concern for many Canadians.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and then I think Dr. Dre, the user there, says, I don't think nuclear weapons will pass the federal environmental assessment. I would say that 100%. And in British Columbia, the reason we don't have any nuclear icebreakers, nuclear warships, or nuclear subs, they wouldn't be allowed on the BC coastline. So there you go. They'd only have to work on maybe the Churchill Bay, or maybe in the Arctic, or on the Rock. I'm sure the people on the Rock would allow it. There you go. Especially if they got jobs from it. That's our really big show for today. In salute to Ed Sullivan and the Beatles. Great songs. What's your favorite Beatles song?
Wow, bloody hell, you got me there, mate. I would say it's probably "She Came In Through the Bathroom Window" by Paul McCartney on the Abbey Road album. What about you?
Revolution.
Right, that's John Lennon one, isn't it? It's got a very good beat to it, very good, and the lyrics are quite amusing, aren't they?
Yeah, and it's a good driving song, especially if you drive fast. So you think we need a revolution? I think there's probably a lot of people that think that right now in the United States, for sure, right? So, and I also like "Let It Be," but there you go. All their songs are iconic, and greatest songs ever, greatest band ever. And you know what? The United Kingdom, famous in my mind for one thing that they brought the world was some of the best musicians ever. Rolling Stones, Beatles,
yeah,
Elton John, Boy George.
Boy George, yeah. Karma Chameleon. Yeah. I
Is
wonder
it
if
ABBA?
we're
No,
going to see
ABBA's
the Karma Chameleon
ABBA's
in this election.
Yeah, Queen.
Queen, yeah.
Queen.
Well,
and
you know,
iconic.
like Led Zeppelin is another good one, I would say.
Yeah, there's so many. George Michael, is he a European? UK? I think he's from the UK, isn't he? George Michael.
Absolutely, he is. Yeah, he is. Yeah. Well, he's dead now, but he was.
What's that? And if we want to be like someone like Google and rewrite history, Michael Jackson And Elvis Presley was from the UK. Think about that for a while. Happy April Fool's Day. And thank you for watching Now Media Group.
We don't just report the news. We live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local, independent. News you can trust.